Welcome to Decoding the Childcare Business. My name is Suleika Hines, your host. I had the opportunity of building 4 childcare centers. I was able to build in 2 different states. Not only did I build center-based programs, but I also opened a group family daycare. And my goal for you in this episode is to take you through the journey of opening, building, and growing your own childcare business and showing you the many ways that you can achieve goal. Thank you for joining us today. I am so glad you're here. Did you know you can have both a home daycare and a daycare center? That's right. You can own the real estate and you can also own the business. So when you own both the real estate and the business, it gives you the opportunity to be able to not only do what you love, but position you in a way that you can grow. Before we take it any further, you know what we have to do every single time, or disclosure. The information presented in this and all episodes is for educational and informational purpose only. It does not constitute financial, legal, or professional advice. Always consult with a qualified financial planner, attorney, or a real estate professional before making any business or investment decisions. An investment in knowledge pays the best interest. Benjamin Franklin. So how do we get there, you're trying to say? Ms. Zulay, how do we achieve this goal of owning a real estate and also owning the business? No one has ever approached us in that way or shared that information with us. I want to share with you, also for me, it was something I did not know myself. I sort of stumbled into it because when I was 26 years old, I bought my first home. It was a multi-family home. And that's when I learned the opportunities available to me in the real estate market. So I want to take you through this process so you too can learn how you can become an independent financial person so you too can understand how you can build a business you love and own the real estate. Here we go. The childcare wealth trap and 3 pillars. Let's recap of what we have discussed thus far. And this way we can position ourselves for our next conversation. On a prior episode, number 13, the childcare wealth trap, we talk about how full enrollment does not equal wealth. Most daycare owners work 60 hours plus a week, but never build real equity. And that's not what I want for you. I want you to build real equity while working the business that you love. The trap is that you're trading time for revenue without building assets that appreciate. Oftentimes we go into the business that we love, we give our all into the business that we love in childcare or in a daycare business, and do not put the pillars in place to build for our retirement. How are we going to get there together? In episode 14, we talk about the 3 wealth pillars. Pillar 1, the business cash flow. Pillar 2, real estate as an appreciating asset. And pillar 3, cash value life insurance, because they have a tax advantage and they grow. Together, they build generational wealth. On episode 15, we talk about buying a childcare center, lease negotiations. Don't get tripped up on lease terms so you can know how to position yourself and how to do a center properly. Your lease terms can make or break your margins. So always verifying the zone, the licensing department, and your design before you build the childcare center of your dream. Before we take it any further, I need you to like and subscribe. This helps you stay aware and knowledgeable of the ways that you can build your childcare business into the daycare business. Oftentimes we hold ourselves back because we feel that we don't have enough information or enough knowledge or someone to guide us. I'm here guiding you, so I need your help. Don't forget to like and subscribe below so I can continue to bring you amazing content. Let's dive right in. The 3 paths to ownership. Buy the real estate only. The first path, you purchase the house, you purchase the home, you purchase a condo, and you want to start your own daycare operation from scratch or lease from an existing operator. When the property is in high demand, properly zoned, and large enough to accommodate growth, this is a strategic path and one that helps you get yourself right into the business and allow you to start generating income. The second path is conditional. You buy the business only. You purchase a daycare operation without the property. You lease the space from the current or new owner when viable, only if enrollment is strong, the business has a long track record, and the lease terms are favorable and long-term. In a prior episode, I shared with you that I own a property, and that property is actually being leased by a childcare operator. she's already existing, meaning she's already running a daycare center from another property, but the property does not have the bandwidth for her to grow. She looked at my property, saw the location, asked me if I would allow for a daycare center to exist in that space, and I confirmed with the town to make sure this is something that could be done in this property. These are a way to lease a space or a home or a condo and build the business or transfer the business to the location to enable you to grow. The third strategy is buy the house and the business. In doing so, you acquire both the real estate and the operating daycare together. You own the asset and the cash flow. When you own the asset and the cash flow, now you're able to control both wealth pillars, the appreciating property and the revenue generating business. You get maximum equity for building. I have a colleague who bought my childcare center in Brooklyn. She already owned a group family daycare in her own building. She bought the brownstone. She lived upstairs with her husband and her family, and the ground level became the group family daycare. It allowed her to develop a path for cash flow, owning the real estate, which is her home, and at the same time enable her to grow. Why? Because now she proved that she can run a business, do it successfully over a period of time, show the financial revenue on the books, and be able to acquire financing to expand, which she has done, and expanded to another center-based program to continue to grow her program as well. Property types that qualify. So you say, Ms. Zuleika, what are the properties that qualify for a group family daycare? A single family home, a two-family home, like I just described. My property is a two-family home. The ground level is allowed for a daycare center. It has a backyard that's fully enclosed. It's on the corner with ample parking. So it works well because you have a place to live, but you also have a daycare center running on the ground level. A townhome has mixed results. Why? Because certain homeowners associations do not allow businesses to be run from a townhome. You may say, well, I bought a townhome and the homeowners association said that I could run a childcare program from my townhome. One warning to that. The homeowners association changes over time. It's not always the same president. It's not always the same individuals that are participating. And the new set of individuals that are part of the homeowners association board can change the bylaws and they can alter the direction. So you may want to be sure that you can codify this in your homeowners association. That if you're offering a business that many individuals in the homeowners association are taking advantage of, work with your attorney, with a homeowners association attorney, and make sure that your business can be grandfathered into your home regardless of a change of homeowners association leadership. That is extremely important and something that not many people consider. They always feel the homeowners association is going to stay the same. I'm telling you right now, they don't. I was in a homeowners association in another property that I own, and even though it was a legally regulated homeowners association, they did have a lot of say in things like the color of your door or the color of your home or how much you can grow or what kind of fixtures you're allowed to have in front of your home, behind your home. There are ways that they can regulate your home that may not be directly impacting what's happening on a day-to-day basis, but can have an overall negative impact in the long run. So you want to make sure you codify that. You look into the parking situation. You look into the playground situation. Are they going to allow you to use the common playground for your business, or are they going to limit that? And if you have access to it now, what can you do to be able to ensure that you have access despite of the leadership change in the homeowners association? Something to consider that not too many people take into account. Condos. Condos also have a homeowner association. They have a board. They have rules that prohibit commercial use, limited outdoor space, common area access. When I had my center-based program, it was in a building that half of it was apartment, the other half was condos. In my lease, I was able to codify to use the fourth floor outdoor part. Because I codified that into my lease, it was grandfathered into my lease. But guess what happened? When the business was sold and a new ownership came into place, they no longer allowed for the childcare center to utilize the outdoor play area that existed on the fourth floor. They completely removed that from the lease. The condo association in the later years that owned half the building started to complain about the children coming upstairs, even though they were working. Some of the children came to the program, and many of them were not even home. It was their nannies that were bringing the children upstairs. It was empty. So the landlord and I had to come to some agreement to identify time slots by which we were going to be using the space. It was mandated by the Department of Health that we had an outdoor space for children to use, and we had already been using it for over 10 years. You see how a condo association governance and just one or two families can go ahead and be that needle in your back or that stone in your foot that just limit your ability to move forward. But because we were grandfathered in and not the whole building was condo, we were allowed to proceed until the time that we no longer were in that space. A co-op is very difficult to run a home daycare program from. You need a board approval. Bylaws typical prohibit commercial operations. You don't own the unit, you own the shares. And the bylaws typically do not allow commercial operations. So co-op is very difficult to run a home daycare from or a business from. And it is something that you really need to consider. Commercial property, already zoned. You don't have much to worry about on a commercial property. There are homes that live on a commercial property. I'm going to give you an example of a friend of mine that ran a business, a beauty business. She ran a hair salon, and she decided to buy a commercial property. On top of the commercial property, it was already zoned for apartment. And it had a commercial garage. She established a beauty salon on the ground level and then moved her family upstairs. They renovated it, made it their own. She was thinking at some point moving and buying a home, but the tax breaks and the tax benefits that she received by living in the same property that was already commercially zoned for a living space and a hair salon enabled her to have a lot of tax savings, run her business successfully, and she still had enough commercial space to lease it out to an accountant. So you see, a commercial property that is already zoned for business gives you the best option of being able to run a daycare center, a group family daycare center, or a center-based program. So many ways to get there, right? I am so excited for you, and I'm so glad that you're able to see that there's more than one way to reach your goal. And so by looking at these different avenues to get there, you start really looking at ways where you can realize your dream. And these points of entries may already be in your purview. They may already exist where you are right now. And instead of going into debt and buying a center-based program or group family daycare, you may want to start right in your home and see if this is something that you like, something that you can do, and something that you can sustain. And use as the stepping stone to then move to your next space. Path 1, buy the real estate only. All right, take a deep breath, take a dip of water. I'm so excited you're here. Take your time. I know it's a lot of information, but we're getting through it together. Don't forget to light as we're going through the process. Path 1, buy the real estate only. When is this a good thing to do? The property is in high demand childcare area. The zoning allows home-based childcare centers, or it can be zoned for that. The space is large enough for group family daycare. Remember, we talk about family daycare. There's usually 6 to 8 children. A group family daycare, we spoke about that being like the sweet spot. You can have about 16 children, and the margin is a lot larger. You're thinking about anywhere from 15 to 25% of margin that you can keep for yourself in terms of revenue. So it really provides you a really good opportunity to implement your dream and to see the sustainability in your community. You plan to operate your own daycare or lease to an operator. Property has private outdoor space for play area, and that's key. The outdoor space for play area is so important because as long as you can enclose it during the summer, you can take the children out during the winter. You can have different plays, different activities. You can invite parents over you can do events for parent, and you can do exploration of nature. So having an outdoor space is crucial and a great selling point for the parents. You are acquiring the appreciating asset, but must build a cash flow engine from scratch. When you're buying a property, if you've never done a childcare center before, you're going to have to go back to my prior episode. You're going to have to set up the LLC. You need to do the marketing. You need to go ahead and find out, is there a need in your community? Connect with a local library. Connect with your Department of Family Childcare in your community. The Childcare Council in your community can provide a lot of services for you. So buying a real estate is really a great way to start, but you're going to have to do the whole business from scratch. What are the cons? Let's start with that. There's no immediate business cash flow. It's going to take you 6 months from 12 months to get there. The renovation costs to meet childcare licensing standard. You may have to upgrade the electrical wiring. You may have to add another bathroom. You really have to look at what the real estate needs are for a group family daycare. You may have to add an elevator or a lift, things to make it ADA accessible. The time for full enrollment can take anywhere from 6 to 12 months, but it's worth it because you're now owning an asset that can give you the flexibility to build your school, build your program and be able to develop it in a way that makes the most sense. On the appreciating real estate, you can live in the property and operate the daycare, which is so important. You have to pay rent anyways. You have to pay a mortgage anyways. Why not live in the property while you're building the business? It seems like a really great win-win. You have full control over the renovations and layout. You build equity from day one. Even before opening, you're already building equity. Why? Because you own the real estate. See episode 9 for zoning red flags and episode 16 for evaluating the perfect space. Together with buying the real estate only, you are so well prepared to really take this leap forward because you are really here and gathering the information to be able to grow your long-term plan. Buying the real estate is a great way to have the appreciating asset. So let's go. What is path number 2? Buy the business only. This is conditional and not recommended for most. Why? Because no real estate equity, you're still paying rent, your lease expiration risk, landlord can control your future, they can sell the home, they can sell the condo, and now you have to find another place to build your center or another community and build from scratch. Only one wealth pillar is being established, the business side only, and enrollment may drop during ownership transition. So that's why that's a very difficult path to go on. Now, the good thing about buying the business only is that you have lower upfront costs. There's no real estate purchase, immediate cash flow from existing enrollment, established reputation, and parent relationships, and your staff may already be in place. So the pros are very alluring, right? Your staff is already in place. Parents already know the program is there. Parents that are looking to have new children are going to come to this place because they are familiar with it. Even after I sold my program, I still had parents sending me email interested in enrolling their children in my program because you have a reputation. You're already known. They really expect you to be. Now, only proceed if all of these things are true. So take this into consideration. Enrollment is strong, 80% capacity consistently. You want to look at least at 3 years worth of financial returns, 3 years worth of enrollment, and pay close attention to the summer enrollment. Business has at least 5+ years of operating history because now, like I showed you, it had traction in that community. People know that you're there. Parents are looking to have second children. They're familiar with you being there, so they're going to want to bring their children to this program because they had a wonderful experience with their first child. And also it's being recommended by families at the local elementary school, at the local supermarket, at the local community events. And so your name will come up and they're going to be interested in enrolling your children or at least learning more about you, which is great because it's like free marketing. The other thing is that the lease long-term is transferable and favorable. If you're in a home, you're most likely getting a 1-year lease or a 2-year lease. But if you're in a commercial space, you're getting at least a 5-year lease or a 10-year lease. So when you are in somebody else's home that you don't own the real estate, you can also be exposed to themselves. And by not having a long-term lease after doing all the renovations puts you in a very precarious situation. So you have to at least have a conversation with the landlord and find out, are you interested in selling anytime soon? What is your exit plan? Do you think that I can remain here for at least 5 years so I can grow, build, and expand my business? And that is something that they can have that conversation with you. But in the back of your mind, I will ask you to start thinking about how can I take advantage of an opportunity that comes up in this community where I can be positioned to buy my own real estate. And so we're going to talk about financing opportunities for you to be positioned for that. But it's important for you to keep that in the back of your mind. Then just assume that the landlord won't sell. God forbid he passes away and the estate is sold because there's a feud between the siblings, or they have no siblings and the estate is sold because that's what they have in their trust. How are you protected? So you're in this community for 10 years, and now you got to think about, what will my exit plan look like? What is my growth trajectory looks like? And if I cannot buy this real estate, can I buy a real estate clean license record with no violations? If you're buying that business and you're inheriting the LLC from that owner, you want to check that LLC. You want to go to the Department of Licensing and check that license and make sure that there's no violations. You don't know how many people go in and buy a childcare center that is existing. After they go through 3 financials, they see that it's a healthy business, but the business itself had violations from 5 years ago that was never clear. That will fall on you. So you have to make sure that you have an agreement in place with the seller, or you have an agreement in place with the buyer, or you have an agreement in place with the seller, or that you go to the Department of Licensing and you vet this out. So you are protected, God forbid, there were exposures that you did not consider. owner is willing to provide transition support. I remember when I sold my school, I provided transition support for a month. If they wanted me longer, I definitely would have made myself available, but they already had a prior existing business. They were not new to the childcare business. So it made sense for me to be able to transition it at a later time. It was easier for me to transition sooner, within 30 to 60 days, but I was available on call 30 days after. You want to work out, depending on your level of experience, your understanding of the childcare industry, how long you want the prior owner to assist you, be there for you as a mentor during this time. Remember, you are buying cash flow, but you're still subject to a landlord's control over your location. And so that's what path number 2 means for you. Path number 3, buy the house and the real estate. This is the recommended path, to buy the house and the real estate. Why? Let's go over the cons first. It's a higher upfront capital, required down payment on both the business and the real estate. More complex transaction may mean multiple loans. You may need to get a loan just for the real estate, and then you need to get a loan just for the business. The property maintenance and repairs become your responsibility. Due diligence is required on both the business and the property. Why? On the property side, you want to make sure there's no taxes, there's no liens, there's no mechanical lien. Mechanical liens is when you have a contractor do work on your property, felt that they weren't properly paid or covered, and then they go ahead and lien your property, and they have first position, meaning that before you sell your property free and clear to get a business loan or a real estate loan, those mechanical liens have to come off. So those are the cons when you're buying the real estate and the business. Now the pros, you own both pillars of wealth. You have an appreciating asset on one side, and you have the revenue of the operating business on the other side. So you own both pillars at the same time. You have maximum equity building and generational wealth potential. Remember when we talk about how do we retire? How do we transition? You're like, well, Ms. Zuleika, I'm just starting my journey. You have to put how you're going to end in mind. How is your journey going to transition in time? Because we're not going to stay here for forever. We're going to go through the growing pains, the maturity of the business. There's going to come a time or health is going to become an issue. How do you plan to transition? So when you have the real estate and you have the business, you have both pillars at the same time. Isn't that wonderful? Full control over the space and the operations and future expansion. You may expand by growing another room, or you may turn a classroom, a bedroom into another space and move your residents upstairs, or move yourself outside of the residence if you have a group family daycare, which you can do. So you have various opportunities in which to manage your group family daycare and control financially of the growth. Well, they say no rent increases and no lease expiration risk. Let's talk a little bit about no rent increase. You may not have a rent increase, but you're going to have a tax increase, insurance increase. There are going to be increases to your mortgage payments that are because of your taxes and because of your insurance. And that can vary from town to town. So although you may not have rent increases, you must consider the insurance increases on both the business and the real estate, and the tax increase that will come. And those tax increases come every year. So you must account for that in your budget and also on how you build your tuition. And we'll talk a little bit more about how to build your tuition in another episode. You acquire both wealth pillars, the appreciating real estate assets, the revenue generating daycare business. Folks, this is the sweet spot. When you're going to pursue this, your seller is willing to sell you the property and the business together. The property is properly zoned for childcare. So we saw that in episode 9. Business has stable enrollment and clean licensing, and the property has room for group family capacity. You don't want to buy a home that capacity is only 8 children. You want to buy a home that the group family daycare can grow from 8 children, a family daycare, to a group family, at least 14 to 16 children. Because in that expansion comes the opportunity for you to financially grow. This is the only path where you control the asset, which is the real estate, the home, and the cash flow, which is the business, from day one. This is the sweet spot, folks. And you must position yourself for the sweet spot. You may only be able right now to do a business in the home that you're in, as long as your landlord gives you that opportunity to do so. But it doesn't mean that you cannot then position yourself to buy a real estate and turn that into the growth of your business. So these are the 3 different pathways for you to accomplish this. So we talked about your road to ownership. There are 3 paths, 1 destination. We want to have a group family daycare. We want to own it, and we want to get generational wealth. We want to be able to retire from something that we love. Path number 3 was you buy the house and the business. And we said this is the recommended path. First, you verify the zoning, you form your LLC, you go to SBA 504 and look at conventional loans. You close on property and the business, you operate and build equity. This is a recommended pathway, but we don't have the money just yet. We want to get there. All right. So we go to path number 2. We buy the business only. This is conditional, having 80% or more enrollment, and we can see this for 5 years, right? We talked about that. We want to evaluate the enrollment and revenue. We want to negotiate the lease terms. We want to have an SBA 7A seller financing. So we talked about path 2, business only. This is conditional, folks. We want to evaluate the enrollment revenue, make sure the enrollment revenue is there. We want to negotiate the lease terms, make sure that we have at least 5 years, because there's no point if they're going to sell the business next year, the house next year. There's no point if they're going to sell the real estate next year. You bought the business and now you have to close. The money, it becomes sunk cost. You lost all your investment. And so you really want a guarantee of at least 5 years. You want to look at ways that you can buy the business through SBA funding. And we'll talk about that in our next episode. We want to acquire the business operations. We want to have a plan to scale and grow the business. That was our path number 2. Now, our path number 1 was buying the real estate only. Now, this is strategic. Why? Because we own the home. We can go ahead and put less money down. We're not buying the business and the real estate, which requires a higher amount of capital. What we're doing instead is putting our money into buying the home. And from there, we're building the daycare center from scratch. So we're making sure that the home is zoned, making sure that we have space and capacity. If we have a townhome, we want to make sure we can have it in the laws or in our lease or in our arrangement of purchase, that this business can exist regardless of a homeowners association change of leadership. That is so key. We're also going to look at HELOC and mortgage opportunities and ways to finance this purchase. We're going to renovate the property to be able to be suited for a daycare center. And when you go ahead and modify the property, be sure to start the process with the Department of Licensing so they can give you some free advice about what the space needs in order to meet the requirement for hosting infants or caring for toddlers. And by having that information, you can save a lot of money in your renovation costs. You're going to launch your center, but you're going to have to market. You're going to have to set up your tuition. You're going to have to connect with the communities. You're going to do a lot of the groundwork to let people know that you are there. These are the 3 pathways: buy the business and the real estate, buy the business without the real estate, or simply buy their home first. Whether it's a condo, whether it's a townhome, we want to make sure that the bylaws exist to enable us to create the business that we want to create, and we'll launch it from. This is how we get to building our dream and building our own daycare center while building generational wealth. There are so many ways that we can get here. Our path forward oftentimes is limited because we just don't know what we don't know. We don't know the questions to ask about what we don't know. However, I want you to understand that there are different financial methods. There are SBA loans available. There's non-traditional pathways of financing your daycare. All of these things we're going to talk on our next episode, the execution. We have the real estate. We have the location. We are ready to move forward. We're ready to execute. Our next episode, we're going to talk, are you ready to purchase your own childcare center? The lenders you didn't know existed. That's going to be our next topic. But for now, I want to leave you with this. Sometimes our own roadblocks come from not knowing who to ask, what to change our direction. And so I hope that in this episode, I helped you understand the ways that you can move forward in growing, building your own group family daycare center or your own real estate portfolio. Thank you for watching. My name is Zuleika Hines, your host, and I cannot wait to meet you on our next episode, Decoding the Childcare Business. My name is Zuleika Hines, your host, and I cannot wait to meet you on our next episode, Decoding the Childcare Business.